All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the hyper-complex, deeply interconnected, and honestly, shockingly fragile world of modern semiconductor manufacturing. If you think you know how the tech inside your smartphone or the servers powering those massive new AI models are actually made, well, prepare to have your perspective entirely shifted.
To really wrap our heads around this trillion-dollar industry, we need to take an epic zoom out. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. A chip's 25,000-mile journey. 2. Foundries, fabless, and chokepoints. 3. The Gen AI chip paradox. 4. Vaporizing tin for AI. 5. Silicon sovereignty and risk. And 6. Breaking the memory wall.
Okay, Section 1. A chip's 25,000-mile journey. Let's start with a completely mind-boggling reality about the very device you're using to listen to this right now.
Before a single integrated circuit reaches your hands, it travels an astounding 25,000 miles. Let that sink in for a second. That kind of distance makes the modern microchip arguably the most globally distributed good in all of human history. It isn't just built in one factory somewhere. It is an absolute globe-trotting marvel before it even gets turned on for the first time.
Following this journey reveals an operation of truly unprecedented scale. We're talking about a process that crosses more than 70 international borders. It takes thousands of highly specialized companies just to pull off 4 fundamental steps. You have raw material sourcing, like getting ultra-pure silicon. Then wafer fabrication. After that, it gets sent off to specialized OSATs, which stands for Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Test, for packaging. And finally, integration. It's basically a massive, synchronized logistical ballet.
Moving on to Section 2, Foundries, Fabless, and Chokepoints. Now this sprawling global network, it absolutely did not happen by accident.
Historically, integrated device manufacturers designed and built their chips entirely under one roof. But as the physics got way harder and the costs completely exploded, the industry evolved. It split into a highly specialized system with 2 main camps. On one side, you've got fabless companies. Think household names like NVIDIA, AMD, or Apple. They focus purely on designing brilliant chip architectures and pouring money into R&D, but they literally don't manufacture anything. Instead, they rely entirely on foundries. These are massive manufacturing giants who take those digital designs and physically etch them into silicon. And this dynamic brings us to our very first massive industry choke point. Taiwan's Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, better known as TSMC, is the undisputed king of the foundry world. TSMC actually produces over 55% of the entire world's chips for these fabless designers. And if you zoom in on just the most advanced bleeding-edge chips, their market share is significantly higher than that. But here's the kicker. TSMC has its own massive dependency. A company behind the curtain named ASML. This Dutch equipment supplier is literally the sole supplier in the world of extreme ultraviolet or EUV lithography machines. And their moat isn't just about having the right blueprints. It's built on a totally unreplicable 30-year data feedback loop from high-volume manufacturing backed by a network of over 5,550 specialized suppliers. For instance, they use lenses from Zeiss in Germany that are polished to a precision smaller than the diameter of a single silicon atom. You just can't reverse engineer an ecosystem like that overnight. Section 3. The Gen AI chip paradox. Let's zoom out to the global market to look at the primary driver of the incredible industry boom we're seeing leading up to 2026, artificial intelligence. The semiconductor market is racing toward a record $975 billion this year. And surprisingly enough, roughly half of that entire massive revenue pie is driven purely by generative AI chips. The whole financial center of gravity in the tech world has essentially shifted to support these giant hyperscale data centers. But this is where we run into the ultimate paradox of the industry right now. Those exact same high-value AI chips, they represent only a minuscule 0.2% of the actual unit volume. Think about that. Out of roughly 1.05 trillion chips projected to be produced, only about 20 million are these highly sought-after AI accelerators. So we're looking at this crazy high-margin, incredibly low-volume paradigm, where a tiny fraction of the physical output dictates half of the global revenue. Section 4. Vaporizing tin for AI. To understand why these specific AI chips are so rare and so ridiculously difficult to make, we have to zoom all the way down to the subatomic physics used to manufacture them. Remember that EUV lithography we talked about? Well, creating these chips requires it, and the process honestly sounds like a sci-fi superweapon. It involves taking molten tin droplets and vaporizing them with a high-powered laser 50,000 times a second, just to capture a very specific wavelength of light from space. They are literally harnessing space-age physics to etch circuitry that is smaller than a virus. The crucial leap here was shifting from the older deep ultraviolet technology to extreme ultraviolet. This dropped the wavelength of the light being used from 193 nanometers down to an astonishing 13.5 nanometers. That shrink is exactly what allows for denser, vastly more powerful AI chips. But the trade-off is wild. Operating at that scale requires a complete vacuum environment, and it pushed the cost of a single machine from around $50 million all the way up to $300 million.
Section 5. Silicon Sovereignty and Risk. Because this advanced equipment is so staggeringly expensive and incredibly complex to run, manufacturing has highly centralized, which has created some really intense geopolitical vulnerabilities.
Right now, a jaw-dropping 92% of the world's most advanced sub-10 nanometer manufacturing capacity is locked inside Taiwan, with the remaining 8% sitting in South Korea. That means the global economy and pretty much our entire AI future is heavily dependent on a geographic area that faces significant environmental and geopolitical risks, from seismic activity all the way to trade restrictions.
So, to try and mitigate this extreme concentration, you see policies like the U.S. CHIPS Act aiming to bring 20% of leading-edge production stateside by 2030. But building just one new state-of-the-art fab, that costs upwards of $20 billion. And as you might guess, money alone absolutely does not solve the problem.
Because beyond that $20 billion price tag, the push for what's being called silicon sovereignty faces huge real-world hurdles. First off, there is a severe shortage of specialized technical labor. We're talking about engineers specifically trained in complex things like advanced packaging and statistical process control. Then you've got complex environmental regulations. These fabs require massive amounts of water and power. And finally, you can't just drop a factory in a new country. You actually have to rebuild decades of upstream supply networks for specialty chemicals and gases. It's a colossal undertaking. Okay, Section 6. Breaking the memory wall. Finally, let's zoom out to the future of the technology itself, because we are starting to push really hard against the physical limits of Moore's Law. We literally can't just keep shrinking transistors forever. Physics won't allow it. So to keep improving system-level AI performance and energy efficiency, the industry is shifting to what they call more-than-more strategies. Instead of making one giant monolithic chip, they're breaking them down into smaller pieces called chiplets and stacking them up with high bandwidth memory in 3D architectures. They're even turning to co-packaged optics, which means using light instead of electricity to move data. All just to break the memory wall and keep data flowing fast enough to feed these incredibly hungry AI models.
But as these super advanced chips allow hyperscale AI data centers to essentially triple in size and demand, it really leaves us with one profound final thought. We've mastered vaporizing tin in a vacuum to build nanoscale circuits. But as we scale all of this up to $1 trillion global infrastructure, will our physical power grids and basic water supplies ultimately break before our technology does? It's a fascinating question, and for sure it's one the industry is going to have to answer very soon. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.